3 days after my family was told that I had died, my own brother changed the locks on my house. He put my wife and 3 children outside with nothing but the clothes they were wearing. My 15-year-old daughter stood in the rain, holding her younger brother's hand, while my brother's wife checked her watch and said, "They have 20 minutes to leave." What they did not know was that I was alive, and I was standing less than a mile away, watching everything happen. But the worst part was not what my brother had done to my house. It was discovering why he needed everyone to believe I was dead. My name is Ethan Mercer, and for most of my life, I believed that family meant protection. I believed that when the world turned against you, your brother would be the person standing beside you. My younger brother, Caleb, taught me otherwise. For years, I had worked quietly, saved carefully, and built a successful construction company from nothing. Eventually, I bought a large family home where my wife Laura and our 3 children could live without worrying about rent or debt. The house was worth around $3.1 million. But to me, it was never just a property. It was the place where my children took their first steps. It was where Laura and I celebrated birthdays. It was where my mother spent her final Christmas with us. I thought it would remain in the family for generations. Then, one winter morning, everything changed. I was driving home from a business meeting when another vehicle crossed the center line. I survived the accident, but I was badly injured and unconscious. The hospital staff could not immediately reach my family because my phone had been destroyed. During those confusing hours, someone made a decision that would change all of our lives. My brother Caleb somehow obtained documents claiming that I had died. The paperwork was false, but before the truth could be discovered, he had already contacted an attorney and started making moves against my property. I was still unconscious when my family received the news that I was supposedly gone. Laura collapsed when she heard it. My children could not understand how their father could disappear from their lives overnight. But Caleb was not grieving. He was planning. When I finally regained consciousness, I was too weak to understand everything. A nurse told me that my family had not visited because they believed I was dead. I remember staring at her. I could barely speak. I whispered, "My wife thinks I am dead." The nurse looked confused. Then she called the hospital administrator. Within hours, the truth began to surface. The death record connected to my name was fraudulent. But by then, Caleb had already convinced my family that the house was no longer theirs. 3 days later, he arrived at my home. Laura opened the door. Caleb stood there with 2 men and told her that the property had legally changed hands. Laura refused to believe him. She asked him where I was. He simply said, "Your husband is gone. You need to accept that." Then he gave her 20 minutes to leave. My 15-year-old daughter, Mia, stood on the porch in the rain. She was holding her little brother's hand. Her clothes were soaked. Laura was crying, but she was trying not to let the children see how frightened she was. Caleb's wife looked at her watch. "Your 20 minutes are almost over." That sentence broke something inside me when I later heard the recording. Because at that moment, my daughter still believed her father was dead. She thought the person she trusted most in the world would never come home. But someone had recorded what happened, and that recording eventually reached me. I watched it from the hospital. I watched my children standing outside the home I had built for them. I watched my wife trying to stay strong. And I realized that my brother had not simply tried to steal my property. He had tried to erase me from my own family. I contacted an attorney immediately. Investigators uncovered forged documents, false signatures, and financial transfers connected to Caleb. The house had never legally belonged to him. The supposed death certificate was fake. The entire plan depended on one thing: everyone believing I was dead. A week later, I returned home. Laura opened the door. For several seconds, she just stared at me. Then she covered her mouth and began crying. My daughter ran toward me. She did not say anything. She simply held me as tightly as she could. That hug hurt more than any injury I had suffered in the accident, because I finally understood what my family had felt while they believed I was gone. Caleb was eventually confronted with the evidence. He tried to blame someone else. He said he had only wanted to protect the property, but the evidence told a different story. The legal consequences were no longer something he could escape by telling another lie. I could have spent the rest of my life hating him. For a while, I did. But eventually I understood something. Revenge is not always about destroying the person who hurt you. Sometimes revenge is simply surviving their betrayal. Sometimes it is rebuilding the home they tried to take from you. Sometimes it is sitting at the same dinner table with your children and realizing that they still have their father. I never changed the locks because of Caleb. I changed them because I finally understood that trust should never mean giving someone unlimited access to your life. My brother wanted me to disappear. Instead, I came home. And that was the one thing he never planned for. Years later, my daughter asked me one question. Why did Uncle Caleb do that to us? I looked at her and said, sometimes people become so obsessed with what they can take that they forget what they are destroying. She was quiet for a moment. Then she held my hand. And I realized something. He had tried to take my house. He had tried to take my name. He had tried to convince my family that I was gone. But he could never take the one thing that mattered most. I was still here. And my family was still together. That was my real victory.